Hello there, folks. This is me doing another video. Let's wear silly hats. I've had some issues in life, and this country's had some issues, this world has had some issues. I just filmed, I don't know, nearly an hour, somewhere around an hour of footage. Got a lot of stuff off my chest, and it'll be coming up in a minute or so. One of the things I didn't mention is delusions of grandeur. I've mentioned some other things that I haven't talked about on camera ever. You know, I like to stay lighthearted as much as I can, but every now and then you gotta hit the bone. You gotta hit the bone, you gotta talk about things the way they are. So, I did something here called Enchanted, Haunted, and Marginalized. I want to thank the few and rare people out there that have stood by me and shared your own experiences, supported me. I'm okay, with, myself. I'm a little frustrated with circumstance, but in general, I feel okay. So I want to thank the people that have helped me feel okay. Without much further ado, we're going to have a video right now. It's going to flip around and coming up. Okay, guys, this is me again. Haven't done the vlogging as much as I've done in the past. I want to do a documentary, actually. That's my goal, is to do a documentary. And it's a documentary about, my life and a particular part of my life that I haven't talked a whole lot about specifically. I've made allusions to it, and I wanted to skirt around a lot of, these issues in my life. I've done hundreds of videos and posted them to YouTube. Right now it's late April in 2016, and I'll get around to a lot of this, but I wanted to call this documentary something along the lines of Enchanted or Haunted, as a title there. Because, I've lived alone. I've lived alone for many, many years now. In other videos, I've explained a lot of my circumstance. In 1995, I was living in a house not far from where I'm at, a couple of places away, and I'll go outside and, point out where it's at. And our house was foreclosed on. And at the time, I was going to the Claremont colleges. So my life became more bumpy than it already was, because leading up to the time that the house was foreclosed on, there was the anticipation of the house being foreclosed on, so there was, a lot of bumpiness and anxiety and stuff. In particular, the thing that I've skirted around is this thing that from the outside would be called auditory hallucinations. That at some point, right around 1998, in my last semester of going to Pitzer College in Claremont, I started perceiving, voices that felt foreign and uncontrollable. And I'm going to try to talk about some of the circumstances about what led to it, and what I think led up to it. Like I said, the house was foreclosed on in 95, and the place where I'm at now, it's a fairly large trailer in Fontana, not the most ideal circumstance here. It's a little embarrassing that, I didn't maintain a middle-class kind of life, no less than that. And this was supposed to be my inheritance where I'm at here. The land is paid for in full. It's about 1.5 acres. And at the peak of the market, before the housing bubble burst in 2008, you know, it's easily valued at more than $400,000, and I always had that to look forward to. If that's, you know, what was eventually going to happen, was at the very least I was going to have a decent inheritance or whatever. So eventually, though, my life became more than just bumpy. It was turbulent. I went to jail a few times. I talked to the Secret Service a few times, you know, and that's something different altogether. I don't know if I'll go into specifics on some of this. And obviously I spent time talking to psychiatrists, and, you know, they tried to put me on medication and stuff like that. And I often look back at certain points in my personal history of if I would have zigged here instead of zagged there or whatever, you know, my life would be a lot different. If I would have guessed this instead of guessed that, and so on. Or, you know, if I would have just had some luck here. A lot of my stuff seemed to be economic, actually. And that if I could have maintained, you know, regular income and stuff like that, then I wouldn't have been left in isolation, which, you know, I understand creates this situation or heavily contributes to it. Another thing is genetics, supposedly runs it in a family, and, you know, my mom, before she passed away in 2002, also had the same circumstance about, number one, living in isolation, and number two, this so-called auditory hallucinations. You know, there's other factors. Another one is that the school I went to was very artistic. You know, it's rooted in the humanities, and, you know, people did spontaneous paintings and murals and stuff like that. And I tried my best, and, you know, eventually I wrote mini novels and, you know, learned guitar. I got one of my guitars right over there. Being with this artistic element, I used to smoke marijuana a few times a year, mostly at rock concerts, and that'll temporarily give you hallucinations, you know, for what they call hallucinations or whatever. But that last year, when I was supposed to graduate, I thought I was missing something. And I thought, okay, whatever my artwork is, you know, it's just not what other people's is. And I figured, you know, a little more marijuana than, you know, I never really smoked it, number one, by myself, or number two, at home. And, you know, I started doing it that year. And at some point, I got these very vivid, nearly psychotic impressions that people like George Harrison at the time was there with me, but he was angry. He was very angry, and it was because he goes through this too often. He goes, "Oh, another one," you know, and I go, "Oh, wow." And that was the hallucination I had, was that there was this, you know, kind of connection going on. See, some similar, but not as bad, where, you know, listen to other music, Led Zeppelin, Ozzy, or whatever, where I think I'm, you know, finally catching the secret meaning of life, or whatever, for whatever that might mean. But right now my money's gone. I only have a few dollars in the bank, and I feel cheated. Number one, I do feel cheated in life. I feel like I could be a regular person out there. And I started doing some research online a little while ago, which is why I went ahead and started filming. And one of the numbers is that it said, you know, my diagnosis was, one of them at least, was bipolar with schizophrenic symptoms. And this diagnosis, you know, supposedly 85% of people that have schizophrenia do not have work. And the same study says 70% of them want work. And I don't know when the study was done, but people that are regular right now are having a hard time finding work. Donald Trump said that the unemployment rate's 42%, and it's nowhere near what the government says it is. The government says it's more like 5%. And there's another government number called the U6, which includes people that are underemployed, not just unemployed, but underemployed, etc., or people that have given up looking for work. And that's, you know, upwards of 10%, according to what the government says. And I talked to a lot of people online, and, you know, from my experience with people in real life, there's hardly any middle ground anymore. People either don't have work, and they're struggling financially, or they're overworked. You know, some people have 2-3 jobs, and they're having hard times making ends meet. I wanted to spit some things out, though. Is that back when I started getting these perceptions, I've never talked about this, by the way. I've never talked about this. It wasn't just the auditory stuff. I was in a ecological art class in the autumn of '98, and I had come back from Venezuela in a study abroad program, and I came back a little early. And part of my art project led me to some hills out here in a place called Lost Lake, and I think there's a golf course there now. I'm not even sure if it's there anymore. But, you know, I was out there and just trying to figure something creative to do. And then there's no wind blowing. Okay, there's no wind blowing. And, you know, like I said, you know, I started doing the marijuana a little bit more. And there were stalks coming out of this little marsh, this pond. And I remember thinking, you know, hey, you know, I noticed something a little weird that, you know, they seem to be moving like almost dancing or whatever. And then I tried talking to them telepathically, and they started, you know, they seemed to jive to my thoughts. And that day I left. That's the day I left Pitzer, and I didn't come back. Eventually I graduated 13 years later in 2011. But I figure, oh wow, it's happening. You know, and that's the key component right there. The key component isn't the auditory hallucination by itself, because you could chalk it up to brain chemistry, stuff like that. But if there's something that you think is going on outside of your mind, and I'll give you an example. This thing right here. This thing seems to breathe right here. This, see how that thing moves in and out? That thing moves in and out. Right in my hand's right here, but... And it does it consistently to my thoughts, and let me show you something now. Now, there's a tiny crack. You know, but, okay, right now, if this makes it to any kind of online forum, it's going to be like, yeah, well, there's probably a major draft or whatever. This stuff has happened consistently, though. This stuff has happened consistently. And it's not just, because I thought about the stalks in the marsh. and ferns and palm trees and stuff like that. You know, this happened consistently for many years, on a daily basis, if not hourly basis. But you can chalk it up to being something undiscovered or not admitted by science, because Venus flytrap responds to living organisms, whatever. But spider webs, you know, the reason I kept pointing out here, you know, spider webs. See that? Okay. Spider webs, you know, have done it. And like I said, towels have done it. You know, how much of a crack is there right there? How much of a crack is there? Anyhow, so there's been a few shows on recently. There's I have music going on there. I always have music going on. A few of them that have finally alluded to this circumstance. Okay. Limitless, The Blind Spot, and The Blacklist have all alluded to this kind of circumstance of what seems to be skirting around schizophrenia, but it's not come out that way. With the show Limitless, that's a metaphor for LSD, which I've done a few times back in the 90s, and you get way strong what's called hallucinations, actually. You know, way more than marijuana. But there's this pill called NZT, which, you know, like I said, I think it's a reference to LSD, probably. And when this guy's on this pill, he becomes, you know, he's able to use his whole brain and, you know, pretty much can learn language instantly and, you know, decipher stuff, etc. But one of the things that happens is he starts talking to himself. Okay, it's, you know, he could see images of himself outside of his body, and they'll have communication with him, and it's multiple images. And that's happened to me too many times over the years. And sometimes, you know, they talk about your inner child or whatever. Sometimes I'll have a teenage version of myself talk to me. And, you know, I have the perception, much like a ghost, scolding me. Quite often it's scolding me. Not too often if it's saying, hey, you're doing good, you're kicking ass. So that's a show, Limitless, and that's an ongoing thing in that show. Now, the show Blind Spot and The Blacklist both had, you know, just a single episode, but they're recent. With The Blind Spot, there's this blonde girl that helps put, you know, pieces of the puzzle together. The show's based off a girl that has all these tattoos, and she's real good at interpreting them. And her boyfriend got killed, okay, and she was partly responsible for why he died. But in an episode recently, she started seeing him, you know, and he was giving her advice, and she would be talking to him, and, you know, and then someone else would show up, and she's just talking to herself. And he led her along a trail that went to an antique store, which eventually went to a corrupt politician. She got kidnapped, had to escape, etc. And with The Blacklist, the main character in that, her name's Lizzie, died. Complications during pregnancy. They had to save the baby or her, and they saved the baby, and she died. And then the criminal mastermind who does work for the FBI is Red Reddington. And they did an episode a couple of days ago where he sees this girl at the beach, this lady at the beach, and she's about to walk straight into the ocean and commit suicide, and he goes and saves her. And he spends time with her at the beach house, and there's all this drama going on, and they're trying to kill him, and there's a shootout going on, and a whole lot of things. And then at the end of the episode, there's this vagrant kind of looking guy at the beach, and he's, you know, looking for coins with a metal detector. And he found a necklace that this girl was wearing, you know. And then Red Reddington asked the guy, "Hey, did you see her? She must be out here because she went outside or whatever again." And he's like, "No one's been here this whole week." And, you know, it turns out he was just talking to himself or whatever. So these are allusions to it. And what I've done is write many novels, actually. And that's another reason. Quick so time. I wrote in 2003. I wrote like 7 with that pseudonym, and I wrote another book called Thermite. This is Zotan. I've written as a novel. And the only reason you get this far is you're having conversations in your head, in my opinion. You know, the only reason, you know, you get that far. So I had this idea, though, that talking about this would help. Maybe doing a documentary would help. You know? Because for the last few months, my voices have come from people that I'm able to physically talk to online. Okay? And I had a strategy of coping with the voices from before, and the only reason I'm doing this now is it's manageable. Or at least it feels manageable. A lot of my voices came from A-list celebrities from the onset, actually, and that lasted for many years, and it's never stopped. A lot of them come from prime politicians, you know, from around the world, and some from what I thought was the Pentagon, similar to A Beautiful Mind, you know, where the math teacher is talking to this agent with the hat and, you know, the whole get-up and all. And I've passed calculus, by the way. And I've wondered myself if that's another of the contributing themes is, you know, this whole, I don't know, this whole idea that the elites telepathically communicate and thinking maybe I'm one, you know, stuff like that. And these, you know, secret societies, whatnot. So, anyhow, what happened with me, I'm not sure that I'll get into it right now as I'm talking, and eventually I might do it, because what I thought about doing was going to the places, maybe doing an overdub, you know, and maybe blotting out the visual image of me talking, and doing either still shots or, you know, some camera shots of different places. For example, the house that got foreclosed on, I could go film that. At the very least, I could take a picture of it and showing you that, etc. And maybe showing you some of these still shots from TV shows or, you know, some documents, whatever it takes. But what happened to me is I found this website where people talk openly about stuff I'm talking about. And it took me a long time. It took me a long time to get there. These voices started with me in 1998. By the time 2002 rolled around, and trust me, I swear to God, I fought to be a regular guy. But by the time by the time 2002 rolled around, I was put on SSI after having gone to jail a couple times, and I was bouncing around, and the voices were telling me, to get up and go places. And I'm not just talking about, hey, get up and go to the store. I went to Arkansas from California. Okay? And that was right when George Bush was being sworn in. Back in 2001. I watched the Super Bowl from a mental health facility out there. I went to New York in April of 2004. Stayed at Chelsea out there. And the voices were coming from a few celebrities mostly. There's 3 of them in particular. And they were telling me to go to the Rockefeller Center and try to get a job working on a set of Conan O'Brien or Saturday Night Live. So walking around town with a guitar in one hand and a suitcase in the other hand. And in some ways the experiences are very unique and all. In 2005, I felt beckoned to go to Hollywood, and there I actually had physical people around me. I was staying in a place, walking distance from Sunset Boulevard. It'd probably take less than a minute to get to Sunset Boulevard from where I was at, down the street from the high school. And that was fun. There was a lot of fun there. The year before last, my SSI ran out, and oh, by the way, the honking, you hear the honking? Part of this whole schematic and perception is not so much now, hardly anymore now. But sometimes I'd start getting on a roll, and I'd start thinking that they're out there trying to disrupt my train of thought. And I could hear horns out there from the railroad and all. Or fuckers backing up, when they're doing construction. They're doing construction on the street, but it seems to be synchronized with my thoughts. But the year before last, my SSI ran out, and I wanted it to run out. Because I want to, try to be a regular person out there again. And, that's what my will is, But the whole thing on that is having the perception that it's not a chemical imbalance. Having the perception that, there's all this telekinetic things going on, like, the swaying of trees when there's no wind, etc. Things like that. One of my sisters, told me recently, was in December, so a few months ago actually, but that she was talking to people through television, and I've had that perception. That certain news reporters do things like fidget, or their hair would suddenly blow, or there'd be police tape behind them, and I could make the police tape move, and those perceptions are consistent, very consistent. So part of this, I think, is getting over the fear of judgment, okay? Because there's going to be people out there that are true non-believers, people that don't believe in telekinesis or telepathy, people that actually go to church, because I've come across them. And, they don't believe in, in God, or, in, in God, or, in, 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 and pretend to believe in the literalness of the Bible. Pretend to believe that Moses literally split the Red Sea, Jesus literally walked on water, and literally resurrected. And they'll pretend to believe all these things, yet they couldn't comprehend that supernatural things still go on, and will call you crazy. A classic example of this is a pastor that he was good buddies with Obama for a while, I guess, and he hosted some kind of dialogue between McCain and Obama back in 2008 when that election was going on, and he was eventually doing the swearing, not the swearing in, but he was part of the inauguration process. And his name's, I think, Rick Warren. But his son committed suicide. And did the devil do it? No, it was because he was mentally ill. And in my opinion, you really can't have it both ways. You can't be preaching, that the devil's out there and God and hellfire and, heaven and the whole thing, and yet also believe that we're not enchanted or haunted, for that matter. If it's demons around you, you're haunted. If these voices are coming from an outside source that's benevolent, then you're enchanted. So part of that's overcoming this fear. And I never wanted to be that person. Catherine Zeta-Jones was a character, by the way, in my Zotan. And one of the reasons I picked her was she was on Letterman. I think, pretty sure that, this whole, that was 2003, pretty sure she was on Letterman, and she was asked about being bipolar. And she said, I don't like to talk about it because I don't want to be a poster child for that, right? So I try to live my life openly as much as possible, but I don't want to be that person that's the first thing you think of is, hey, I've had this experience with going across the country, and I talked to Secret Service when I was in Arkansas, for example. They pulled a gun on me, by the way. They pulled a gun, and I did the sign of the cross, and they calmed down. There was two of them, and we went into a small room, and I want to tell him one of them about this book by Mike Davis. Mike Davis is from Fontana, where I'm at, called City of Quartz, which talked about the implementation of a police state. And at the time, I thought that was going on. And I learned about that in the autumn of '97 when I was going to Pitzer College and doing an urban studies module. So these are side issues, bit of a tangent. So I wanted to talk to the other people, though. And I realized the majority of the people would scoff at this stuff, if not straight ass ridicule it. But I've talked to enough people online now to have very, very similar circumstances, if not, stuff that's even stronger. People are very, very open. And some of them use their real identities, their actual face as their avatar, which I've done, for a few hours or whatever here and there. But I've said, enough information about myself, my real name, where I live, stuff like that. So there's a few people that kind of know my story good enough that I'm comfortable, saying, hey, we're friends. We're friends or whatever. For whatever friends is. I hate using that term, by the way. So I wanted to talk to the people out there that have the reaction. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. That goes on with me, or something similar goes on with me. And there's a girl on there that gets ridiculed for her beliefs of the Anunnaki, and she'll start talking about the actual meaning of Genesis and things like this, and goes off into a lot of spiritual and supernatural things. And, talking to those people helped me out a lot. So, anyhow, what I'm struggling with right now is getting simple things done. Okay? I've struggled with this for years. Okay? You look around this place. No one's physically been in here for more than a year, besides myself. Okay? I keep all these CD holders. These were CD holders, and I sent out data discs. I've recorded more than 70 musical albums. I'm not saying they're any good. It's mostly cover songs and stuff like that. I've produced a few movies, one of them based off the Zotan book. Okay. And I've tried to stay creative and all. And I've had another book after the most recent. The most recent I wrote was Thermite back in 2013. And I've been trying to do a follow-up to that called Kiribati. That was going to be it. It's an island nation in the Pacific, Kiribati. But these voices, what the non-believer would call voices, I would call them demons. When they're tormenting, I would call them demons. They're collectively stronger, and it's like a tag team. There's always at least one around, at least until recently, up until the last few days. And even now, they're around, often enough that it bugs me. But if I have any progress going on towards any of my goals, okay, one of my goals might be filling out an employment application, for example, okay. So if I have any progress going on, then these demons, these tormentors, start, traumatizing, to say the least. And they're going to be somewhat vague right now, and they have different methods. But whatever's out there, as far as the perception, is collectively stronger than me, okay? Number one, it feels foreign. These things feel foreign. And number two, it feels stronger than me. So yesterday I watched a documentary about JFK getting assassinated. And they went into the details of, okay, I just had a little mishap right now as far as my finger hit the button on the camera, so it turned off. But I'm continuing along with this thing that's supposed to be a documentary. I'm talking about a JFK documentary that I watched, which is part of the reason I'm doing this. I figured, hey, I can do that. They went into this, detail of who the conspirators were. Obviously, this documentary took the stance that the Warren Commission was bogus and way off. The head of the Warren Commission was Dulles, Dulles Airport. I want to say his first name's Ellen, who was fired by JFK, by the way. But this thing went into very much detail of who the people were. Nixon and Senior Bush were both in Dallas the day that JFK was assassinated, for example. And, they implicated and inferred a lot of other people. Some of them I've never heard of, but obviously LBJ was part of the mix. And it diagrammed where teams of assassins were in Dealey Plaza. And pretty much came to the conclusion that the fatal bullet came from a sewer drain, actually. A sniper in a sewer drain. And talks about a body swap and, you know, whole cover-up and all. So anyhow, I was talking about the, you know, voices and perceptions of government agents, like from A Beautiful Mind and all, and having it feel stronger, you know, than what my individual willpower can handle. And you could talk about vast right-wing conspiracy and things like that, and Illuminati and, you know, Freemasons and, you know, all these other things, these secret societies and these hidden elites. And that's what this documentary did, is it showed a thread from the Rothschild bankers who financed the people that helped Hitler come into power, you know, and the same people that eventually arranged the assassination of JFK eventually did the 9/11 thing. You know, the same thread of people, skull and bones, you know, that kind of thing. So right now my mind is actually on processing this video. And I'm not sure what's become of this. Sometimes it's simply therapeutic to talk, and sometimes it makes it online, and I have a lot of backlog that hasn't made it online yet. But I sat here, and I have music on there. I don't like to stay in there too long when the music's on, because people say, hey, it has copyrighted music. I've mentioned that before. So I sat here on that bed. See that? And it felt like a hospital bed. Like a recovery hospital bed. And I've had this perception since December, and right now it's late April. It's felt like a hospital bed for many months now. And being that I have voices that feel real, and I have, you know, this perception of, you know, mild telekinetic phenomena going on, because the voices by themselves, like I said before, they do nothing at all. They do nothing at all. They make you believe that, you know, it's a chemical imbalance possibly, but when you have, you know, telekinetic things or perceptions of it, you start thinking, okay, no, there's something outside of our bodies, you know. Right now, to speak, there's trillions, I don't know, I'm not using the word trillions just off the top of my head, but there's no less than billions of phone conversations just zooming right through me. You know, there's all kinds of digital images just making their way through the airwaves, and there's radios and cell phone calls, and all this stuff's going on, and we just accept it. Okay, and somehow the mainstream person can't accept that our brains, you know, very likely have the same capacity of jetting out similar vibrations or waves or images, whatever the fucking mechanism is, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But before, it felt like being a prisoner, and I still feel like I'm a prisoner sometimes. But whatever the ruling elite is, they picked this for me, and that's the perception of it all. Okay. I've had family that that are millionaires, okay? And the people in my family, my cousins, that are far right-wing and grew up far right-wing and remained far right-wing, they're the ones that got the money. The ones that remained left of center, they got shafted, you know. And you get kicked to the curb, you get marginalized, you get left behind, and the whole thing. And if families doing that to each other, what are these guys doing that are running the corporations, running the governments, etc.? If they're talking openly about not letting Trump be the Republican nominee, because he's too liberal, so-called too liberal, you know, and they're openly trying to circumvent him being the nominee, instead of uniting behind someone and eliminating the rift that could give the Democrats a victory. If they're doing this openly, then how are they behaving in their quiet thoughts? You know, what's going on behind closed doors? Okay. I became openly social liberal when I was going to Pittsburgh during the 90s, and that's when, you know, the rich part of my family stopped talking to me. And others try to ridicule me, but it kind of just rolls off my back. And that's when I started thinking that they don't want anything good for me. They don't even want me to be happy. And I could see this in certain people, that if I'm ever genuinely happy or have a happy story to say, I could see them frown. It's like an inversely proportional emotional system, you know. And on the opposite, when they see I'm pissed off or frustrated, then they start smiling and gawking, and you know, certain people go down that road. But I figure I'd wait it out, and it's like a hospital bed, and I figure sooner or later they're going to go to the next step and fucking literally kick my ass to the curb, and I'm going to be literally homeless somewhere, right? So I found this place online with people that perceive the same problems, experience the same phenomena, where there's a rich ruling elite that not only do they not care about us, a lot of them are trying to kill us. You know, and my book Thermite started off at Beech Grove, Indiana, where there's so-called, or supposedly, there's a gas chamber camp there, you know, with turnstiles and barbed wire fences and, you know, the whole thing. And Rex 84, Executive Order 10999, Agenda 21, people talk about these things, and some of them aren't even conspiracies. They're actually out there on the books that people could look for. So these voices will inhibit me, though. And they'll do things like stop me from applying for work. And I don't care. The non-believers can say, oh, that's bullshit. Okay? But I ask you something. What's easier to do? If you had to make hundreds of videos, say, you know, trying to explain the situation, what's easier? That, or putting out a simple application to work, you know, even so much as like at a fast food joint? What's easier? Because somehow I chose to do hundreds of videos. Okay? These demonic forces, or the perceptions of them, whatever you want to call it, began a certain kind of trauma, which, you know, sometime I might get into details. Robin Williams had this thing called Lewy bodies, and the phenomenon is called Lilliputian, something like that, which is named after Gulliver's Travels, where you perceive little people or whatever, which I've had no less than an element of that. I've had OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. where the refrigerator, for some reason, you close the refrigerator, right? And then, demon will do something horrific. So you have to open it and close it a few times until the demon disappears, and, it sounds stupid. It sounds stupid to someone listening. But, that's the way that is. I'm going to go on the bed for a little while and turn off the radio, I guess. So I talk to these people online. And there's a lot of skeptics, and there's a lot of haters and rude people. But there's enough people that have gone through similar things in a ballpark way, that I finally started talking about some of the specifics that I'd never talked about before. Believing that the government is doing the equivalent. I think it was the show Elementary, actually, but it might have been another one where they talk about uploading your consciousness. And I started having that perception from the onset, that somewhere out there, even before the Snowden revelations of the government's mass spying on everyone, that there's psychics, or computers, but no less than psychics, that pick a few people and decipher your thoughts and upload your entire existence to these supercomputers, and this includes your dreams. And I've been on this website pretty steadily for a year. I mean, I signed up about a year and a half ago, but around Memorial Day last year, that's when I been on it consistently. And I talked about that, wrote a few paragraphs and all. And anywhere else, you would expect silence or ridicule. But I got a response from someone. It's like, oh, wow, you go through that too, huh? And this other person, I believe her because she's a little more open, up until this point at least, about things she's gone through, with, the whole roller coaster of life and all. But I figured I could do a documentary or something. And it always takes a little longer for me to get these things out of the way. I started writing this book called Cure Body, like I mentioned, and those are notes. These are notes that have been there for months, and I just stopped writing the book. I only got like 20 pages through it or something. So I got about 10 minutes left of this video left. And I gotta put it on one of my computers and maybe recharge the battery and start over. But as far as I was talking about being enchanted and being haunted, there's spiritual entities or voices, and I'm not sure if I'll use these interchangeably. Some of them have been consistently good, and that's when I feel enchanted. Some of them are consistently bad, and that's when I feel haunted, and I call them demons at that point, Songwriters go through this, and I think it's Imagine Dragons. With Imagine Dragons, that's where my demons hide. Anyway, I post a lot of videos to that site I'm on, by the way. So sometimes, though, it'll be a friendly voice or entity, whatever, that just doesn't want me to go through with filling out an application, for example. And I'll give you a variant of one of the methods of, how they do things. In pornography, they call it cuckold, where a guy's girlfriend has bones right in front of him, I think some people get off on it. And the clean version of that is the movie with Woody Harrelson, Demi Moore and Robert Redford. And I can't remember the name of the movie, but they're in Vegas, and basically this young couple is presented with this thing about, hey, can I, if I give you $1 million, can I have sex with your wife or whatever? So I could vividly see some of these pretty women that are pulling my strings out there. And there'll be someone that's a heinous, demonic kind of hater. And if I even come an increment closer to achieving any of my goals, I could start to see sexual activity between them, which, you know, kind of hurts the psyche. Now, the whole thing on this is this website, in my mind, helped verify some things that I suspected ever since the late 90s. Because I was talking to, you know, a person a couple of months ago, and you know, we talked very, very consistently for a while. And I'd be here sleeping on this bed where I'm at, and, you know, it'd be hours since I had last signed on. And then, you know, I'd sign on, and as soon as I sign on, that same minute, literally that same minute, she posts something, okay, this girl. And if it just happened once, you say coincidence. This happened more than 10 times, stuff like this. I started Twitter accounts, and, you know, very similar things. Now, some of this can be scientifically tracked as far as, you know, Wi-Fi is not magic, that's science. And people can go to the, you know, your Tumblr, your Twitter site, and do something, not in the moment, but immediately afterwards. And I've seen that happen as well, where I post a particular video on my Tumblr, and then within a half hour, someone else, you know, will post a video by the same band, and this happened with many people, to the music thread at this website where I'm at. And it'd be from a band that I had just barely heard of, and I haven't ever seen mentioned before online. So, you know, there's a connection going on. But I woke up today, and this girl, because before it was only Hollywood celebrities. By the way, I'm about to run out of battery. She was a little more antagonistic than she's been, and I figured now's the time to look for a job. And then things got a little crazy in my head again. So I'm going to have to upload this because my thing's blinking. I'm about to run out of battery. So we'll see where this goes. Right. Okay, so that's it. Hey, Floopy, what are you doing? So that's it, man. I went ahead and watched the whole video right there, which usually I don't do that. The things that just appeared before this, usually I just film shit and put it on, and then film shit and put it on, because, you know, I'm just trying to, you know, dump stuff out there, get stuff off my chest. But this time I watched it, and, you know, there's a lot of fears and apprehensions about maybe I'm saying too much, you know, right? Haven't said enough, just like the song. But no, this one's okay. This one's okay. I gotta talk about this stuff sooner or later. Probably gonna put this at my home cocktail 24 site, I'm guessing, and call it Enchanted, Haunted, and Marginalized. There's a lot of stuff going on in life, and hopefully this helps me solve some issues. So there you go.